be discussing the comparatives, okay? We use adjectives to describe everything around us, people, things, objects, places, anything. And we even use those adjectives to compare one thing to another. To that we call comparatives, okay? When we're talking about two things and saying that maybe one has a characteristic that the other doesn't have, that's a comparative, okay? We can use adjectives to describe the difference between two things, okay? So we're comparing them. There are two ways to make the comparatives. The first one is adding the termination ER to the adjectives, and the second one is adding the more before the adjective, okay? So we're gonna look in depth how we're gonna use those two. Okay, let's take an example. We're gonna talk about two planets, planet Earth and planet Mars, and we're gonna compare them in different characteristics. The first ones will be the diameter. Mars is smaller than the Earth, okay? There we're adding the termination ER to the word small, to the adjective small. The second one is the distance from sun. Mars is more distance from the sun than the Earth, okay? There we're adding the more before the distant. The length of the days. A day on Mars is slightly longer than a day on Earth. Again, termination ER. Moons. Mars has more moons than Earth. More before the adjective, okay? We can also use comparatives to compare more than one thing, okay? Back then we were comparing two planets, planet Earth against planet Mars, but we can also use that to compare more than one thing, okay? We compare one thing against a group of things. For example, Mount Everest is higher than all the other mountains. Here we're talking about hundreds of mountains compared to the Mount Everest, okay? Here we're gonna see in depth how we're gonna use the termination ER or the more before the adjectives, okay? When we're talking about adjectives of one syllable, we're gonna add the termination ER to the end of the adjective. Tall, fat, big, sad, all of those ends with ER. Taller, fatter, bigger, sadder. If the adjectives has two syllables, then we add the termination ER or more before, okay? Sometimes we can use both, and eventually we're going to notice which one is the most common. But if we're not sure of which one we should use, we go with the more, okay? Just to be completely sure. But here you have happy, simple, and busy adds the termination ER, and title and tangle, we use the more before, okay? Then we have the adjectives of three syllables, and with these ones, we only add the more before the adjective, okay? Important, expensive, more important, more expensive. And finally, we have the irregular adjectives that works a little bit different. For example, good, the comparative will be better. Bad, the comparative, will be worse. Little less, much more, far, further, or farther. Okay, with the irregular adjectives, they actually change the word completely. We don't add anything to that. It's very important that you know the difference of when we need to use the termination ER for the comparative and when we add the more before, okay? So all of these tables, you can find them either on websites or you can actually take a look at your student book that has a couple more examples that you can use, okay? It's very important that you take a look at the word of the adjective before deciding if you're going to use the termination ER or if you're going to add the more before. Remember that if you're not completely sure about the termination, you just add the more before. It's also important to take a look that when you're doing the comparison, you use the word than, okay? For example, Earth, it's smaller than Mars, okay? We use the word than after the adjective to mark the comparison between the two things. Or for example here, Mount Everest is higher than all the other mountains, okay? Either way, at the end of the presentation, I will leave you two links where you can have a little bit more explanations and more exercises and examples about this subject of the comparatives. Remember that if you have any questions, any doubt, or just want to chat about, you can contact me through the Hangouts application, You can leave me a comment on the Google Classroom or you can send me an email, okay? See you next time, guys, and I hope you're safe and good at home. Bye.